nerderotic.com.
Welcome back to the Nerderotic channel. My name is Gary Beekler, and I come to you from nerderotic.com, and the people have spoken. So we're going to continue covering Manifest. And first off, I want to thank all the people who commented and all the new subscribers. We really appreciate it and welcome, and we hope you like what we do here. We cover a lot of TV, mostly genre stuff, and that's why we're covering the Manifest. And as I said in the previous recap, we don't usually do stuff on network TV, but it's got Robert Zemeckis involved. It's sci-fi, so we thought we'd give it a try. And so far, it's okay. My opinion really hasn't changed from last episode. I still don't know on this one. There's still a lot of drama in my sci-fi show. And now, while I understand in the early parts we need to have this for characterization, but this is only a 13 episode season, I believe. So I expect stuff to move a little bit faster, but still very heavy on the drama. But it had an interesting ending. So it kept me going a little bit, but I don't know if this episode was much better than the last one. I think it's paced better. I think it was definitely paced better. So before I go forward, spoiler warning. Thank you, Viking Bitch, courtesy of Viking Bitch, for the spoiler paddle. This is a gift she sent us. This is awesome. So well done. This episode is called Reentry, and we are at the airport again because at the end of last episode, 20 plus passengers from the 191 who were on the plane were drawn to the airport because some of them have superpowers, basically. They can hear things. They're a little bit psychic. Last episode, we focused on Michaela quite a bit. This one's a little bit more focused on Ben. So Ben and Michaela are at the airport, and Ben runs into Sanvi, and they find out they were on the plane together, and they also find out that she is working with his son, who has leukemia. Now, his son, again, had a twin sister named Olive. She is 5 years older now, and he has remained the same age, obviously, which is very interesting. I do like that part quite a bit. So the questioning goes on for a long time, and Michaela finally decides to pull her cop badge and say, hey, you don't have a lot of right to keep people here. You got to start letting them go. So they do. But they also mentioned this is a matter of national security, so don't talk to anybody about this. And then the FBI guy whispers into another FBI guy's ear, I want eyes on all of them. So we end up back at the Stone household, and Ben starts hearing music in his head in the kitchen, and he mentions it to Olive. She's all no, but maybe it's Alexa. He asks, what's an Alexa? Haha, very funny. Then Olive confronts her mom, Grace, tells her that she really needs to tell her dad that she has moved on, or, she needs to make a decision one way or another. And she really does, because everybody knows except for Ben. He's going to eventually figure it out. Now, another awkward situation happens at the police station when Michaela goes there and runs into Lourdes, and they really double down on the soap opera here. Lourdes is her best friend who married her ex-fiance. So that was very awkward. She blew her off, goes into the captain's office, says she wants to get back to work. And the captain's all, that's great, but you got to jump through a few hoops, one of them being a psych test, which she kind of questions at first, but the cap's like, hey, it's we're in uncharted territory here. It's kind of weird. You've been gone for 5 years and you haven't aged. Weird. So psych test. Yeah, definitely. We're at the hospital in the next scene where Ben and Grace and Cal's getting his treatment. And Grace is getting phone calls from her work. So Ben decides to let her answer those, hits the streets of New York, and he starts hearing that music in his head, and he's drawn to Rod, who is the musician on the plane with him. And Rod is playing the music that Ben is hearing in his head, and it turns out that Rod needs Ben's help. He overheard Michaela at the airport debriefing saying she was a cop, so he figures that he can help him get his son out of jail. Now, when he left, his son was 13, and when he returned, he was 18, old enough to go to big boy jail. We don't know what kind of trouble he's in, but he's pretty desperate because he can't visit him because he's a resident alien, so he just can't roll up to the jail and go visit him. So Ben offers, or tries to offer, to help. The next scene is the psych evaluation with Mick, and we get a little background with her. 5 months prior to the plane flight, she had killed her best friend in a car accident due to some booze, but she was exonerated. She's kind of rushing through her psych evaluation here, being kind of rude, and says basically, the only thing I have going for me is my job, so please let me have it. And that's really not good enough. So the shrink says, yeah, you have to come see me again. She then gets a phone call from Ben asking if she knows anybody at Rikers, and just like that, Ben and Rod are at the jail visiting Audio. We find out that he had been working in a jewelry store, and he got knocked out, and when he woke up, everything was missing, so it's not looking too good for audio. The next scene, we see Grace and Cal walking down the streets of New York, and some lady grabs Cal and says, "He is risen. He is not here. He is risen. He is not here." That makes no sense. That sounded like to me that they were at a point in the show where like, hey, we got to remind people this is a sci-fi show and put something weird in, and that's what it felt like to me. Ben and Rod end up going to the jewelry store where audio worked, and they talk to the owner, and he's pissed to see Rod there. Rod tries to confront him. Ben holds him back, and he walks to the back of the room, and they end up talking to the jewelry store owner's son, who sounds reasonable. He's all, "Listen, I didn't know what else to say. My dad's a good guy. Don't judge him too harshly. He's upset." But audio, when he came here, he gave us a fake name. He gave us fake everything. So what are we supposed to suspect? I mean, he was knocked out. He was the only guy here. And yeah, what else can they say? Then we get another awkward scene between Jared and Mick at the police station where he asks her not to punish Lourdes, and she isn't, of course. And it's just them saying, again, that this is really weird, and this is hard for me, and it's hard for you, and it's hard for everybody. And we've heard that quite a bit. So yes, we know it's hard. It's a very weird situation. Got it. Okay. Then we finally get to something that I thought would bring some substance. It was, of course, the big round table with all the government people, and they're all discussing what's going on. And this is just a very brief scene, and somebody actually says, "Theories abound." I was like, what? Theories abound. And then they talk about, is it a wormhole? Is it an extraterrestrial? And then a guy brings up a really good question, and they kind of shoot him down. He's like, how do we know these are the same people who left in 2013? I think we should lock them all up. And I can't say I would argue with that. It's pretty weird. And of course they go, this is America and people still got rights. And, yeah, I guess he's right technically, but I don't know. I still think it would have been interesting too if they did quarantine them longer. I know it's not really good for drama, but if it was a good sci-fi show, they would have had them quarantined for a good long time, do a montage, have a time jump, do something. I think that would have been better. Have them separated again, make them feel even more alienated by being debriefed and followed more. Yeah, I think that would actually kind of make the show a little better. Just my opinion. That's it. Then Ben and Mick are talking, and Ben asks Mick to pull the file on Rod's kid if he could, to try to figure out, because he thinks it's just wrong what's happening to him, and he wants to, he feels compelled to help Rod because of what's going on in his head. They also talk about hearing, the music and stuff, and Mick brings up that, it's not just a puzzle you can put back together. And actually, Ben's all, yeah, it kind of is. I can't really move on with my life until I figure this out. And I think that's believable. Then we get some scenes with Ben. He asks his daughter if they want to go to ice cream. She blows him off. He's, goes in the bedroom, gets some flashbacks of some better times. We see him falling to sleep, and Grace, kind of staring off into the distance with that guilty look in her face. Then we get a scene with Mick and Grace, and Mick knows that Grace has moved on. She confronts her, says she's got to tell Ben at some point. So we now have the daughter and Mick telling Grace to tell Ben, and she again says this is a really hard decision. It's a really hard decision. It's an impossible decision. Okay, and again, I get it. I think I've had enough at this point. At least we get a little payoff with this one a little bit later. So yeah, I kind of thought they were going to stretch this throughout the whole season. Thank God they're not. At least part of it anyway. And that's fine. That's fine. And again, we still don't know who she's with. We have no idea. So we're back at the hospital, and we're watching the news, and we see one of the passengers who's not supposed to say anything talking to the media and insinuating the government might be behind this. And we see that Ben is actually watching the news. He walks over and talks to Sanvi, and they speak briefly about the voices. Sanvi says she hasn't heard voices, but she's felt something in her head, so Ben doesn't feel as crazy, although he's not a full-on believer like Michaela is right now. They go back and notice that Cal is drawing a little family portrait, and there's a little shadow person in the background, and Ben asks, what's that? And Cal's like, I don't know. Weird. Next scene, we see the lady who was on the news walking towards her car in a parking garage, and on a pillar right next to her car, we see a mysterious shadow as it cuts to commercial. Then back at the hospital, Mick shows up with Audio's file, and it says he has some priors and he's lied on his application. So there's enough there to send him up the river for a little while, and he's in a lot of trouble. And Ben, of course, asks if she could cut some corners. I mean, he keeps asking. She's like, I don't know. But it's not looking good for audio. But then she starts bringing up the miracle factor, the whole, all this stuff is happening for a reason. Why don't you believe in miracles? And Ben is still in denial about it. He's like, listen, everybody just brings up God when they can't explain something. We also get a visit back to the jail, and it's a visit that doesn't go well between Rod and Audio's freaking out, and so is Rod, and it does not go well. So we get a quick visit to the jail, and it's a visit that doesn't go well, and Audio's freaking out, and so is Rod, and that doesn't end well. We get a scene with Mick looking at Lourdes's Facebook posts over the last 5 years, and her wishing her birthday on her birthday for those 5 years she was gone. Multiple posts saying she missed her, and the last one is of the wedding ring, saying something like, I hope I can make him as happy as you were supposed to, or something like that. Just really laying it on thick. We're back at the Stone House after that, and Cal has been freaking out all episode, wanting, not freaking out, but obsessing on wanting his toys back, wanting his stuff back that he had before, wanting his Batman toothbrush. And he's having, he just wants things to be like they were before. He's having trouble letting go. And I guess the whole family did. Olive hears that, perks up and says, hey, Dad, I'm ready to take that ride now. They go to a storage facility in Long Island, and there Olive confides to him that she's always known that Cal was alive. Maybe it's a twin thing. We're not sure, but she's always known. She told her shrinks, she told her mom, but nobody believed her. When her mom had decided to finally let go, she had gotten rid of all of Cal and Ben's stuff and was going to give it away to like a Goodwill. And Olive had canceled it and put it in a storage facility. When they arrive into the storage facility, Ben and Olive do, they see all of Cal's stuff, Ben's stuff, and they see some scuba equipment there, which was previously mentioned by Grace that she went on a scuba trip. And yes, it's because that's her friend's storage facility, and Ben finally figures out what's going on. It finally clicks. Olive feels bad. He tells her not to, and then he starts feeling a pain in his head, and he feels the music. Goes to the other end of the jewelry, or goes to the other end of the storage facility and sees the son of the jewelry store owner and all the stuff that Audio had supposedly stolen. He gets confronted, he offers it to him, and then he kind of talks shit about Audio, and then Ben knocks him out. So next scene, the cops have shown up, and Mick says, you cracked the case. He's completely exonerated, just like that, So I kind of see where they're going with this show, and we're going to get a little bit of the mystery, and it's going to be a lot of the voice in the head's going to lead us on a mystery every week, and we'll get little bits of what the plane thing is, but if we're in a season 1, we're going to be a long time till that's answered. So, Lost in 4400 Light is definitely the vibe I'm getting so far. We get back to the Stone home. Cal is happy. He's got some of his toys back. Olive again confronts Grace, needs to tell him. Maybe she's the one who needs to let go. And she also does it. I told you so to Grace. Like, hey, I told you, I always knew they were alive. I knew they would come back. And you always told me to let go. Maybe it's time for you to let go, Mom. So Mick goes to Lourdes's house, knocks on the door, walks away. Then Lourdes comes out. They have a little talk. They hug, talk about their feelings. Everything is not cool yet, but it could be in time. And she gives Lourdes her blessing, and she also tells her a lie. She said, I was coming back to tell him no. I was coming back to give him his ring back. And then they flash to the scene where she actually texts yes and puts the ring on, but the text gets denied because they landed in New York with no cell service. So that's how that one went. And we get a little musical montage of Audio and Rod reuniting and Jared getting his ring back. And then the episode ends kind of good. Like, this is, I need a lot more of this. We see the lady who was on the news, and she's watching her own interview, and she's kind of smiling, going, I knocked that one out of the park. And we see the shadow moving behind, her in her house behind her. And I'm sorry, but it looks like the shadow of like a rolling mannequin. Maybe it didn't look like somebody like walking. It just looked like a shadow and somebody moving it. And then it focuses away from her and on to her on the television. and then we see her brains splattered all over the television, and that's where the episode ends. Very violent ending, but we definitely need more stuff like that. That was a decent ending. I would say this was a little better than the pilot, but not much. I would still firmly plant it at a 6.5 out of 10. It still needs to do a lot more to win me over, but it is not the worst thing I've ever seen. Now, some of the performances, they're pretty good for network TV. And again, I'm sorry if I sound like a snob, but a great show to compare it to would be a show called Counterpart on Starz, starring J.K. Simmons. If you want to see something really well acted, written, a great drama that is also sci-fi, it is on Starz. Yeah, you can get a free trial, I think, and go check it out. It's only 10 episodes. Highly recommend it. That's the kind of show I compare this to, so that's why it's almost not fair. But Athena Karkanis from The Expanse, who's playing Grace, we love her. She was in season 1, and Expanse is also a great show. And the kid is actually pretty good. And Olivia, played by Luna Blaze, she's pretty good too. So again, it's all right. It's all right. It's not the best thing I've ever seen. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen. We will continue watching it, but I will warn you, if it goes off the cliff, we'll probably stop. We've had a couple shows do that, but not much. So intriguing enough for us to stay, and I really appreciate you guys watching the recap, and I appreciate your feedback. I'd love to hear your theories, because I'm curious now. The only theory I have out there, and I got it from IMDb, is one of the government officials was called a DARPA agent. Now, if they're using DARPA, which is the Defense Advanced Projects Agency, and has a lot of conspiracy theories around it. There's weather manipulation, time vortexes. I mean, they're all over YouTube. You can go check them out. If they're mining from that, that would be cool. But they definitely need to do more of that, especially with the whole shadow person thing. And there's YouTube videos on shadow people as well. It's very much an Art Bell thing, Coast to Coast AM when he was around. So, and I love that stuff. They just need to put more of it in. Right now, we're just getting little morsels of sci-fi in a drama. So more sci-fi, and you will make me very, very happy. We will be back next week with this. Sorry, these ones are late, but I watch it late on the West Coast, and I get done when I get done recording. Please check out nerdrotic.com for our live schedule. We do mostly live recaps. Our next one will be The Gifted if you're watching this before Tuesday. We're also covering Venture Brothers, Better Call Saul. In the future, we will be covering The Good Place, and many Daredevil's coming up from Netflix. Can't wait for that. The Man in the High Castle, we'll be covering that. The Orville, when it returns, we'll be covering that. Yeah, lots of good stuff coming. So please like, share, and subscribe if you like what you saw. And have a great night, and may the small folks sing songs of your greatness. Cheers.
Nerdrotic.com. Please subscribe.